I have a dream that one day I'm sitting on a plane or a train or standing in line at home affairs. It's a good dream, I promise. I look around and I see someone, a complete stranger, playing one of our mobile games. I go up to them, introduce myself, tell them I made this, and they basically just made my life. I ask for a picture for proof of this momentous occasion and go back to my seat, smiling wide. Hopefully, my partner in crime is in this scenario with me. Hi, I'm Tiane Erwee. When I was growing up, I wanted to be an artist, a painter. I was open to other things like architecture, but one thing that I did know was that both of my parents were programmers and they were always busy and stressed out. So I remember thinking pretty clearly I did not want to go into IT. When it came to the time to apply for university, my mom jumped in and said I should probably study something that is financially viable, like engineering. What kind of engineering? I didn't know. I wanted to be an artist. So I applied for aeronautical engineering. I didn't even bother scrolling past A. And I got in. Yay. So for my first year at university, I was studying to become an aeronautical engineer. I passed everything, but I was dreadfully unhappy. I did not want to be an engineer. Then my mum enters the picture again. She had heard about a degree called game design. This sounded like a hybrid of arts and sciences, which is pretty much right up my alley. So I switched over to game design engineering side. This is a mixture between game design and electrical engineering, and half of it was great. But I really did not like engineering. So I begged and pleaded, and finally I moved over to game design art side, where I got to do subjects like animation, way more my speed. But in my final year, it came to the time to apply for a job. This is what my mom was warning me about. What kind of job can I get with this degree? My lecturer told me about the grad program at BBD. I read the entry requirements and technically I didn't meet them, but hey, I love to code, so I gave it a shot and I got the job as a software engineer. In my grad year at BBD, we did these boot camps, a week of focused training on a single topic. My second boot camp, I sat next to someone called Claris. We bonded immediately around our love for creating games. We came up with a plan. Step 1, get a BBD game jam going. Step 2, win said game jam. Step 3, generate interest in making games in the company. And step 4, make games full time. After 7 years of working on this plan on the sly, we actually managed to start a gaming division, but only in our spare time. Thus, T's and C's Games was born. Get it, Tiane and Clara's T's and anyways. So for the past almost 2 years, we've been making games after hours and on the weekends. As of March, I've been doing this full time. And Claris joined me at the start of July, so we're pretty much living the dream. You can visit our website here, download our games, have a go. If you choose to do that now and play games for the rest of my talk, I'm cool with that. Either way, I have your attention. We are working with the French publisher Voodoo. They have published amazing games like Mob Control, look at the download numbers, and Paper.io. So we believe we're in the right hands. We've been working with publishing managers from Voodoo. Basically, we pitch ideas to them and they either can them or greenlight them. We then send them updates regularly so that they can give us advice on game direction. We do this because Voodoo pays for our ad campaigns, which run between $370 and $700 a pop. Now, there are many facets to mobile game development, not just making a game. In fact, making the game is the easiest part, in my opinion. You need to come up with an idea. You need to pitch the idea. Then you develop the game. You implement analytics. You need to come up with an icon, which is surprisingly difficult, set up the store pages, which is incredibly tedious, and the worst, most difficult part, you need to record and edit the ads. Now, to pitch the idea of a gaming division to our CEO, we had to obviously make a game. This brings us to our first game, Color Wave. This is a game of capturing territory. You're this little green dude and you need to capture territory on a board by changing the color of your territory. To win, you need to capture the most. If you fail to do so, then you will fail. There are some visual elements to note. The bar at the top displays the current territory split. Each player has a pattern to distinguish the players' territories from each other. We added these rockets that explode in a horizontal or vertical line depending on their orientation. With each level, the player earns coins based on how much territory they have captured. The day before we launched, we thought coins are cool, but we didn't actually give the player anything to do with them. So we built this hat store at the last minute so that the player can buy and equip hats. This would allow us to add some customization to the game. This is what is commonly referred to as metagame, gameplay on top of the core game. Think town building and daily challenges. Now, I mentioned ads were very difficult to make. This was our top performing ad. We didn't add much. We added the hand to show which moves are being made and the lightning around the play area. I think it was quite difficult to communicate the aim of the game in less than 30 seconds, but this was our best attempt at that. Now, to understand the performance of a prototype test, there is some terminology you need to learn that we use to determine viability. Firstly, there is CPI, or cost per install. This is calculated as your advertising spend divided by the number of installs you get. It's directly related to your store pages, your icon, and most importantly, your ads. The target here is less than $2.50. Related to CPI is CPNU, cost per new user. This is calculated as your advertising spend divided by all your first-time app launches. Next, you have D1, or day one retention. This is how many people play the game the day after they have installed it. It's related to the actual game, how fun it is, and how rewarding. The target here is more than 30%. We didn't set up the analytics for ColorWave correctly, so we don't know how it did, but we didn't carry on with it because we knew some things from a survey we sent out to our initial testers. Very few players played more than 100 levels, and with each level taking about 45 seconds, that's not a lot of playtime. So we died. Or did we? Actually, we just lost a life. We're talking about games after all, multiple lives is kind of par for the course. The only thing that died was ColorWave. And so our graveyard began. Now, the problem with ColorWave was that every level was exactly the same. There was no progression or variation, just the same thing over and over again. Which brings us to lesson 1. Avoid repetitiveness. This might seem super obvious, I know, but when we were developing the game, we thought it would be enough to randomly generate the board, so it's something to really keep in mind during development. For our next game, we based it on the game we built for the 2022 BBD Game Jam, made with love by Clarice, Carter, Louis, and me, Luminate, also known as Crowd Control. In this game, you have a grid. You have pieces coming down on the right-hand side with 1 to 4 quadrants filled with one of 4 colors. You tap on the grid to place a piece. Balls of light then expand out of the piece in the direction of the filled quadrants. You need to match 3 balls of light next to each other of the same color to clear them off the board. You have to have enough space around an empty tile to tap. You can't place on top of balls of light. and you need to reach a certain score to move on to the next level without running out of space. From Luminate came Maki Match. We made some changes. The plates that are sent out now show more clearly where the sushis are going to be. You now tap and drag the pieces onto the board with a ghost of where they will be placed and whether or not they can be placed. You can now place on top of existing sushis to allow for more matching configurations. You now need to make specific color matches instead of just matches in general. Stacking was really popular, so we decided to kind of add it by having the sushi stack on top of each other on the plates above. We added two extra mechanics, crates and bombs. Crates block you from placing, but when you make a match next to them, they break. Bombs also block you from placing, but when you make a match next to them, they clear everything in the square around them. This would allow us to build levels and implement some kind of progression in difficulty. And of course, we changed the theme to be about sushi. When we first came up with these changes, we had some concerns. Level design would be time consuming, and the 2D art would be difficult to produce. Luckily, ChatGPT exists, so it just generated the art. We still had to hand design the levels though. Here are some examples of levels that I designed. The colored crosses are colored crates, the black crosses are bombs. The brown crosses are neutral crates. Ultimately, we designed 20 levels. We thought this was enough. Once the game was finished, the hard part, recording the ad. This was a top performing ad. We added a bit more this time. We played the game poorly and added this bad text on top to make it obvious that the move was bad. There are different kinds of ads. There's frustration, bad gameplay, good gameplay, and excessive. An ad where something in the game is dialed to 11. Here we were trying out frustration, where the player in the ad makes such bad moves that it annoys the viewer so much so that they go and download the game. This is definitely the most common kind of ad. So again, super complicated game to communicate in less than 30 seconds, and the goal of the game was not clear, which means the player making bad moves was not clear. This makes for a bad ad. As you can see, D1 was all right at 33%, but CPI was more than double our target. So we lost another life. Now we've lost 2 lives. It's probably a good time to figure out how many lives we have. Is 2 a lot? It generally takes between 6 and 12 prototypes to get a hit. So I've given us 12 lives. The first 6 I call the lucky zone. We would be lucky to get a hit in this area. The next 6 I call the likely zone. This is where we should most likely get a hit according to statistics. So losing 2 lives doesn't seem so bad now. And so our graveyard grew, which brings us to lesson 2. Make your game easy to communicate and thematically clear. This will make it much simpler to record ads. Now, as mentioned, stacking was super hot, so we decided to really lean into it. Our next game was called Hex Bounce Stack because Hex Bounce wasn't available in the App Store. This was our most difficult development experience. Every time we met with our publishing manager, he would suggest changes and we would need to go back and do some patchwork. It took almost 4 months of part-time development to get this one out. The original idea was a game where you aimed and bounced pieces to create stacks to complete the level. The controls would be tap, aim, and release. The objective was to create enough stacks to clear the level. The lose condition would be the player running out of moves. Extras we thought would be combos, trampoline, bounce effects, hammers, and bombs. Level progression would be different board configurations and obstacles that needed to be broken to clear the board. It wasn't very clear what we were going to build, and it wasn't anything like what we built in the end. Out of the idea came Hex Bounce Stack, a game where you tapped to place pieces on a hex grid that then bounced surrounding pieces of the same color on top of them. The only thing similar to our original game was bouncing and stacking. You can get the gist of how it works from the top performing ad. Now you'll notice there's no sound. We actually tested out a theory with this game that no one plays mobile games with sound anyways, so it didn't matter if we added it. So we added a bit more this time. We added the red shaking text in the vignette to make it really obvious that the player is about to lose. We were trying frustration out here again. Though it did do better than Mocky Match in terms of CPI, it still was not good enough. The main problem with Hexbound Stack for me was a lack in clarity and direction. The development took incredibly long, and even though it didn't do too horrifically, by the time we tested it, we absolutely hated it. Clarice once referred to the code as a war crime. So another life lost, and another grave, and another lesson. Know what you want to build before you start. It's much easier to reach a goal if you know what that goal is. Now, stacking was really popular, so we decided to go with it but add a little spin. How about instead of stacking things, you start with stacks and you need to unstack the things? This spawned an idea we called Warehouse Unstack. The original idea here was to have a warehouse conveyor belt with stacks of items on it. You then needed to unstack the items on a board to make matches to fulfill orders. So I'm going to take full responsibility here. Prototyped it rather quickly, and it was a buggy mess. We sent it to our publishing manager, and he was unhappy. He should not be pointing out bugs. He should be giving us advice on game direction. So we spent a whole lot of time fixing it up. We also came up with a different theme. There are trays of donuts being pushed out, and you need to unstack the donuts to make matches to fill up boxes to fulfill orders. Stacko Donuts was born. We did have some kind of level progression, sort of. The levels had different board configurations, and more colors were introduced. We spent a lot of time polishing up the effects and the colors, and put a lot of effort into what we thought would be the one. This was our top performing ad. So, yeah, before we ran the test, we actually got some organic downloads, and we thought that was a good sign because we thought if people are finding the game without ads, surely they'll find them with ads, right? The results were absolutely terrible. So another life down and another grave. Now, the problem with Stacko Donuts was there was a lot going on the screen, and the player had to put in a lot of effort for a tiny bit of satisfaction. So, this led us to our next lesson, Lesson 4 Minimum Input for Maximum Output. Give your player as much satisfaction as possible for as small an action as possible. Now, we're dealing with great disappointment. We really thought unstacking was a golden opportunity. I mean, Mahjong is basically unstacking, and Mahjong is awesome. So we decided we're going to implement some core concepts from Mahjong and Tri-Peak Solitaire. The core idea here was you have a stack of tiles, like a stack of cards in Tri-Peak Solitaire. You needed to clear the board, like in Tri-Peak Solitaire, before running out of tiles to draw, like in Tri-Peak Solitaire. So we made tri-peaks with tiles. We called it tile peaks. Our spin was that you could match either the color or the symbol, and when tapping on a tile, all the tiles of that type stuck onto your pile. This is how we thought about minimum input, maximum output. Now, this was at the end of 2024, right before going on leave. So we put in the effort, but we really needed to finish it quickly. This was our top performing ad. This time it was not the frustration ad that did the best, so that's quite interesting. Big oof. The effects probably weren't as good as they could have been. I mean, the flipping and the wobble that Clarice did was really nice, but the particles were a little weak. Despite that, it really was quite fun. However, our levels were generated. Because of the speed, we didn't have time to hand build our levels. This was our mistake, in my opinion. So, lesson 5. Bring in variation by hand. A player can tell if something is generated versus if something is hand-built, and hand-built pretty much always feels better. There was an idea we'd been throwing around for about 8 months, based on the popular game Carom, Fingerpool. Still on the stacking vibe, we wanted to combine Carom with stacking. This would be our first non-grid physics-based game, a whole new paradigm, a fresh start to the new year. In Carom Stack, you launch a puck into other pucks. Each puck you hit will be cleared from the board. You have a limited number of shots per level. Each level has 3 different configurations. All of the levels were hand-built. There is progression in game difficulty. The playtime is long. It gives you a great feeling of satisfaction when you make a trick shot. We took all of our lessons and applied them to this game. We added extra mechanics like breakable bushes, bumpers that push the pucks away, paddles that add resistance, and moving platforms. My level design kind of devolved after a while because I got really tired of copy pasting the pucks. In the end, we had 30 levels, each with 3 configurations, so basically 90. This was a top performing ad. This time it was the excessive ad that did the best. We finished our game halfway through March, but only got around to testing it at the end of May because the ads took incredibly long because of capacity constraints. So we lost another life. We tested the game we made after Carom Stack, before Carom Stack, so don't worry about the top right for now. So the games are in chronological order, but I've put the lessons in the order of learning them, so this brings us to lesson 7. Ads are important. Work on them early on to avoid any delays in testing. This brings us to Farm Rush, a pretty cute game about getting animals home to their barns before the time runs out. We kind of broke our rule here and we started with a theme with no idea what the game was actually going to be because I had a dream. And I told Clarice, wouldn't it be great to make a game with cute farm animals? I really want to use cute cows somehow. At the same time, our publishing manager told us about a game called Slither Rush, a game about getting snakes into holes. It's basically that parking jam game, but with bendy things. It was then released as Caterpillar, and now it's released as Gecko Out. I thought about it, and what came to mind was what if we combined it with classic snake mechanics? What if the animals were all detached from each other and you had to go and pick them up before getting them home to their barns? And why not put it on hexagons like Catan? At this point, I was full time, so it was full steam ahead. I built a small prototype in a day to pitch it to our publishing manager. She gave us the green light, and full development ensued. The first thing we wanted to consider was additional mechanics. Up until this point, bar Carom Stack, which was untested, we had single mechanic games. Sure, we had the crates and bombs in Mocky Match, but there really wasn't much else. So we started listing additional mechanics we can add. Ice-covered animals, ice-covered barns, locked up animals with keys, animals tied to posts that needed to be picked up, rocks that needed to be destroyed. We also had a single-use tile mechanic, but we decided to scrap it because it would either be pretty useless or cause an extra lose condition. And you don't want more than one lose condition. So we're back to grid games. But this time, it's much simpler to design levels because there's so many mechanics to pick and choose from. Here are some examples of levels that I designed. The green squares are obstacles, the colored squares are barns, and the colored circles are animals. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at the top is the order in which the level needs to be solved. The blue squares are ice. The brown squares are cages, and the colored stripe are keys. Ultimately, we had 54 levels. One secret to making the player feel like there's more levels than there actually are is to change the theme of the game, but to repeat the levels. The one day I was designing literally the last level. I built it in the editor, and when I hit play, I did not recognize the level I had just built. It took a good few seconds to realize that I had built the level rotated. And this gave me the best idea. When we switch the themes, we can rotate the levels. They feel totally different, and it's like we have 200 levels. This is the best happy accident ever. And now we have Farm Rush, or Farm Herd Rush on iOS, a game about farm animals spread out across a hex grid. You need to pick them up and create trains of animals to get them home to their barns. Get all the animals back to their barns before the time runs out to win. While testing Farm Rush, we discovered something. Our setup for all of our tests was incomplete. Facebook needs to validate your application ownership by using a file called appads.txt. This validation is required to report stats correctly to Game Analytics. This file needs to be at the root of your website. For all of our tests, we had a Wix site. We didn't have this file at the root of our website. So none of our tests were reporting correctly. So all those lives, and we don't even really know if they were failures. So we built a new website in like 4 hours. Please go there and download our games. This website now has the right file, and we kicked off a new test of Farm Rush. We also put some extra time into the ads. This was our top performing ad. We added this little zooming in scene to make it really unique. But still, we did not make it. We actually had really low retention. So we lost another life. And Farm Rush is in the graveyard. But our publishing manager gave us the go-ahead to make some changes and retest on iOS. So we have a chance to get it back. So we made some changes. We completely revamped the UI and made the background blue-gray. We also made the colors of the animals much brighter. We removed some of the very easy levels, and we now introduce the extra mechanics much earlier in the game. Additionally, when looping the levels, we now shuffle them so it's not the same levels, just rotated. We also changed the top performing ad by cutting out the first bit and starting zoomed in. This version was also the top performing ad. This play free now at the bottom was because our publishing manager told us the first version looked too expensive. I did not know that was a thing. So we needed to make it really obvious that the game was free. For iOS tests, we look at CPU instead of CPI because not all install events get sent through from the App Store. I don't know why, it just is that way. So we did not improve on retention, and CPI was pretty much the same. So yeah, never mind. Which brings us to lesson 6. Sometimes, despite your best efforts, you just get it wrong and the market is not interested. So don't get attached. You will be incredibly sad if you get attached to every game you put out there. Next, we have Block Merge Match Puzzle Game, playing the SEO game here. This game was fairly simple. There is a square grid with colored cubes. Tap between colored cubes of the same color to merge them. Clear the board to win. Level design was also really simple and quick. I just did them backwards. Placed a set of cubes and then another set that blocked them, and so on and so forth. We also added ice blocks and rocks as obstacles. We added specific hard levels, levels that were significantly more challenging than the rest. We did allow the player to skip them, though. We added level paths so that the player could go back and replay levels. We also had a star system in the game so that there was incentive for the player to go back and replay levels where they did not get 3 stars. We had 2 of our friends test the game regularly, and they gave us a lot of feedback about how the game looked and played. Thanks to them, we added the undo mechanic, which became pretty crucial to the game. And we also updated the visuals a lot to be more coherent. So thank you, Tori and Fabio. You helped a lot. This was our top performing ad. This time, we had a whole lot of back and forth with our publishing manager. I think this is the 8th ad I sent her before she said, yes, let's go. Yay! Ah, this is getting stressful. Really stressful. Now, I don't think we would have met our CPI target if we didn't have the whole back and forth with our publishing manager and all the responses from our testers. So lesson 8, get feedback and listen to the feedback and implement the feedback. People do have good ideas. Now it's the start of July and Clarice has joined me in working full time. We're pretty much living the dream. Now we just need a hit game to keep it going. We decided to each work on our own games to double our throughput, which brings us to our next 2 games, Paint Jam 3D and Bricks Factory. Bricks Factory is our first attempt at the midcore genre. Midcore normally involves a stronger progression system, some roguelite mechanics, and incremental mechanics. In Bricks Factory, you build an assembly line that produces colored bricks to fulfill orders on a conveyor belt. The game combines tower defense and dock merge mechanics as a spin on the genre. Here is some gameplay. In addition to designing levels, we had to balance how each level scales in difficulty and how the rewards scale. So we had to balance the interaction between the two. This adds an extra level of complexity beyond just level design. This was necessary to balance the meta progression system. We have not tested Bricks Factory, and we only want to release it when we test it, so sorry you can't play it. Next, Paint Jam 3D. This was also super simple. You just have blobs of paint that you drag onto a hex grid that then auto-sort to fill up paint buckets to complete images. Here is some gameplay. Like I said, really simple. You've got your pieces at the bottom, drag and drop them onto the board, And then when paint blobs of the same color are next to each other, they'll sort onto the same piece, fill up the bucket of paint, and create an image. Pretty simple. About 2 days after I released onto the App Store, I went onto the Store Glide Telegram channel. Now, Store Glide basically posts the most relevant hyper and hybrid mobile casual games at the time. I know you see where this is going. Yep, it happened. We made it onto Store Glide. This was pretty big for us because it was our first time. So we wanted to ride this out and take it into testing. We wanted to launch immediately. The ads were done, everything was ready, but there was a problem. Urgent. There seems to be issues with Facebook and the campaigns run on them. We are experiencing abnormally high CPI. We're already in contact with Facebook to address this, but in the meantime, we advise not to run tests until it is resolved. Damn, we're blocked. So I don't have testing data for Paint Jam or for Bricks Factory, sadly. I did bring along a sneak preview of an ad I made, though. I've got a funny feeling this is going to be the best performing ad. This was a lot of effort. I know it ends abruptly. I ran out of time. It can only be 30 seconds, so you gotta cut it. So yeah, this is like 807 photos, and my back hurts so much afterwards, but I think it came out pretty nice. So yeah, I don't have testing data, so no lesson for these two. However, there are some other things that we have learned along the way that I would like to share with you. Use as many external assets as you can. It greatly accelerates your development cycle so that you can put out more high quality prototypes at a rapid pace. There are some packages on the Unity Asset Store that I have found incredibly useful. Cartoon FX Remaster Bundle has a lot of really high quality particle systems and basically covers any scenario you can think of. Feel by More Mountains. This gives you the ability to add all the juice you want. I've started using it extensively recently, and it is so powerful. It also comes with nice vibrations, which is the best haptics package I've used by far. This is really worth it. And GUI Pro Casual Game by Layer Lab. It's actually just awesome. We use it for all our UIs. There's actually a lot of GUI packages on the Asset Store, so I suggest you browse them and pick one that matches your vibe. A really useful website is poly.pizza. Here you can download many free low poly 3D models, which is pretty great. And you can use AI to generate your art. Now, this is a bit of a contentious issue because some people say the use of AI generated art cheapens the feel of your game. So you need to weigh up the pros and cons of the speed you gain versus the quality you lose. My favorite tool to use is Mojo AI because it isn't a subscription plan. You just buy credits, and as you generate, you use credits. Another tip I can give you is to create a basis starter project with all the common things you will need for a new game. All games need certain things like settings, sounds, haptics, level progression. So create a new project and implement all of these things. And then what we've done is we set it as a Git template. Alternatively, you can export all the assets as a custom Unity package. That way, when you start a new game, just use your template or import your package and voila, boilerplate done. So yes, I've died trying to make a hit mobile game. But we just need to try again and again. Which brings me to the most important lesson that I can impart upon you today. You might die. You might have a big graveyard, but you always need to get back up. Thanks. I think there's 5 minutes for questions. Are there any questions? I realized there's just something I want to mention. The ads look very sparse in terms of UI. The ads aren't exactly the games. We have to remove all the clutter from the game. So just in case you thought the ads are exactly what the games look like.
Hi, how are you?
Good, and you?
Good, thanks. First off, great talk.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask, in regards to when you do or design a game, when it comes to progression in the game, how do you kind of balance it out? It doesn't feel like compliance from the player's side. He feels complied. Oh, I have to do this and this and this and this to have some sort of meaningful progression, rather than the pressure is just a rewarding in-game kind of thing.
Well, it just comes from testing. I mean, you're a person. When you test your own stuff, you can feel if it's a chore or if it's fun.
Yeah.
So it's kind of trial and error, but also steal a lot from other people. Like other people have great ideas, so just play games and go like, oh, great, I'm gonna do that. It works. That it?
Someone else?
Tristan. Oh, and Lucky.
I just want to ask for the games that you have, if you have hard modes and stuff, have you ever thought of making power-ups to help beat level easier and possibly like a leaderboard between other players to compete against?
Yeah, so that's what's called metagame. And for our tests, we're actually not supposed to add metagame at all because metagame ups your attention. So we're supposed to test it on core mechanic only. So only if the game gets greenlit to go to further development do we add like power-ups and that kind of thing.
Oh, okay,
Because
thanks.
that's what you monetize, and they don't want that initially.
Okay.
Hi, firstly, great talk. I think a lot of people at BBD share your passion for game development, and I think a big portion of the difficulty is finding a publishing house that'll back you. Could you share maybe how you guys went upon that journey?
Right, so Claris had already worked with Voodoo previously, and then they were like, just send us some stuff. We joined Voodoo Academy, and then we launched 2 games, and then they reached out to us, and they were like, hey, cool, we want to give you a publishing manager, let's work. So they come to you. But join Voodoo Academy because there's a Discord, and it's really awesome. There's this guy, Nicholas V, and he posts such awesome like resources and what's hot right now, and yeah, so Voodoo Academy is a really good way to start.
Thanks.
Any other question?
Yes. What was your favorite game?
The one I'm busy working on right now that you didn't see. Sorry. Wait like 2 weeks and I'll publish it.
Hi, Tiane. With so many graves that I saw, I don't know what I said. I don't know what I should say. Rest in peace. Welcome back. Of the many lessons that you've shared, the failed ones, which one is the, how can I put it? Which one is the valuable lesson for you personally?
Minimum input for maximum output. I think that is the most useful thing I've learned because that's how you hook a player. Like, give them everything like all the particles and the haptics and flashing lights, and give them everything for just tap, and then they'll get hooked. Dopamine.
Good stuff. Yeah, thank you.
Hey, Tiane, that was a great talk. I must admit, I was addicted to Toon Blast. Did you have a game that you kind of were addicted to that started you on this journey?
No. I've been playing games since I was very small because I don't know, we had 3 PCs when I was growing up, so I've always played games. But personally, I've never really gotten into mobile games except for Tetris and Minesweeper. Those
So-
are my go-to.
Same till I got addicted.
Thank you very much, everyone. And thank you so much, Tiane. It was wonderful.